to show you how to do assignment number 5, which is the coloring page in Illustrator. I'm going to show you some examples. Everyone's is pretty much going to look alike minus some of the colors. You know, you can choose the colors of your tree and the color of your boat and different shades of the water, but for the most part, everyone's pretty much going to look like this. It's just we're going to draw everything using the paintbrush tool in Photoshop. Okay, so in order to get started, you're going to click on Coloring Page Starting File. If it asks you what to open it in, you want to open it using Adobe Illustrator CS6. Click OK. And we have our coloring page. In order, if you do not have the navigation pane open over here, go to Window and make sure Navigator is open, and that's going to be your easiest way of zooming in and zooming out. If you notice there are little blue lines, that is known as your guides. I have put that in for you, so in case you're not a very good artist, you're not good at drawing a tree or a boat, you can just follow the lines. When we're done with this project, we're going to hide the guides. That way you don't see them. But until we're completely done, you're going to see the guides, and we'll hide them at the very end. So for the most part, all we're going to use in this assignment are our brushes. If you do not have brushes, I'm going to show you how to get them onto your screen. But first, let's all go to Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials. That way we all have the same screen. I think my navigation window disappeared, so I'm going to add it back really fast. Move it over here. Okay, so the main tool we're going to use today is this paintbrush tool. If you click on it, it's going to allow you to paint. Now, over here on the right hand side, you see the fourth one from the bottom is like a little paintbrush. If you click on that, those are going to be your different brushes that we are going to use today. In order to increase the size of this, you can grab the bottom and just make it longer. That way you can see all of them. If you hit this little arrow right here, there are the main brushes. You have a scatter brush, a calligraphic brush, an art brush, and a pattern brush. They're all a little bit different. Like if I get rid of all of these. So my first brushes, these are just your main brushes. They're just line brushes. So I can just draw a line. That's basically what that is. The other brush, a scatter brush, is like if I wanted to draw some strawberries, or I wanted to draw some ladybugs. Basically what it is it scatters them. It's called a scatter brush for a reason, because I draw a straight line and it'll scatter the ladybugs along that straight line that I drew. That's why it's called a scatter brush. The other main type is an art brush, and it's going to be like pictures. Like I just drew an arrow, or I have the word art. So they're kind of more like you're drawing a picture. And then you have pattern brushes. Pattern brushes are going to be like if I'm drawing a leaf pattern, or we're going to use this one later, it's a rope pattern. So those are different types of brushes. We're also going to make our own brush towards the end of this project. So if you do not have your brushes showing, go ahead and push this little brush picture right there to add them. And the first thing we're going to do is let's zoom in on our tree, because we are going to start with our tree. Okay, so I want you to grab the charcoal brush. It's the second one from the top. And all you have to do is hold down your mouse and move your paintbrush along that line. Okay, if that didn't work, make sure your paintbrush tool is selected over here. Then do the other one. If you mess up, all you have to do is go Edit, Undo, and retry it. Okay, now I'm going to add some branches to it. I'm actually going to extend my thing a little bit. Oopsie, I don't like that, so I'm just going to backspace. I'm going to make that all one big one. Okay, so I have my basic trunk over here. Now if you decide that you don't like this brush, you can actually change the brush style very easily. So let's say that I wanted this marker brush. It'd be very, very easy. All I would have to do is hit my selection tool, create a box around it, and then hit the marker, and now I have a different type of brush selected. I'm actually going to go back. I'm going to redraw, and I'm going to go back to my charcoal one because that's the one I like. In order to deselect anything, the easiest thing is to just click outside of your artwork, so anywhere in this gray area outside of your page. Okay, so now that we have our tree, we are going to add some leaves to our tree. But first we have to change some brush options. So in the brush palette, this is known as the brush palette. Double click on the fall leaf. If you do not see the fall leaf, go ahead and show some of your other brushes. So this is our fall leaf. So go ahead and double click on that leaf, and it's going to open up the scatter brush options dialog box. And this is just where you can choose how far apart you want your leaves, what color you want your leaves, all that stuff. So on the size, this will indicate the size of the leaf. So you can get it from 10% to 1000%. Okay, it's going to be defaulted to 100%. The next one is spacing. It's going to indicate the distance between the brush objects, so the distance between one leaf and the other leaf. The scatter is going to indicate the deviation of objects on either side of the path. So if I draw a straight line, how far out from the line am I able to put a leaf? And then the rotation indicates the orientation of the object in the brush. So if you want a lot of leaves going every which direction, this would be the rotation. So what we're going to do is, for the size, we're going to make the first one 40% and the second one 60%. For the spacing, we're going to do 10% and 30%. The scatter, we're going to do a -40 and 40. And then for the rotation, we're going to do a -80 and 180. So that one's going to stay the same. Okay, so now we're going to use the fall leaf brush with its adjusted settings to draw leaves on the tree. So go ahead and push OK. And we're going to start by selecting the tree and locking it. That way we can't mess. If you lock something, that means you can't mess with anything else. So in order to lock it, we are going to use a selection tool and draw a little square around our tree. And we're going to go Object, Lock. Basically, and then we're going to do Selection. Basically, locking an object prevents it from being altered while you work on other objects in the artwork. So we don't want to alter our branches because we like them. So we're locking it so that we can't accidentally mess with them. Okay, so we're going to choose our scatter leaf, make sure our paintbrush is selected, and we're just going to draw using strokes. So if you just draw on this little path here, it'll create some leaves. And you can do more than what the guides show you. I think that's a little bare for a tree, so I'm going to come in here and just add some more. So you can just add some more. If you add one and you don't like it, just hit the backspace. Just undo what you just did, and I might add like a little click right there. Maybe a leaf is falling because it is fall. So just kind of decorate your tree until you feel. See, I feel like those are kind of a little out there, so I'm gonna undo those a little bit. Feel like I got a pretty decent tree going on here. Okay, so that's a pretty decent tree. I'm happy with it, so just keep going until you're happy. Now that I have my leaves, I can change the color of my leaves by hitting the selection tool and dragging a square around my leaves. The reason we locked the branches earlier, because now since the branches are locked, when I drew my square, it didn't select the branches, just the leaves. Now in order to change the color, we're going to double click on the brush, we're going to double click on the leaf in the brush palette to open up the scatter brush options. The method here, we want to make sure it says hue shift. And then we want to make sure preview is selected. Click OK. Apply to strokes. And now, up here at the very top, this is your stroke and this is your fill and this is your stroke. Now you can just choose whatever color you want your leaves to be. I'm going to choose orange since I have fall. And then whenever you're done, just click outside of the artwork somewhere in the gray area and your tree is complete. Next, we're going to use the marker brush to draw blades of grass in our artwork. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more onto my marker, onto my picture. Okay, so now we're going to use the marker brush, which is this one, to create some grass. So double click on the marker brush and we're going to change some stuff right here. We're going to change the colorization method to tints, which is, if it's not already, change it to tints, and change the width right here to 50%. And then click OK. And then using the color bar, choose your type of grass. I'm going to choose green for my grass. If you want a different color green, you go right ahead. And then go ahead and hit your paintbrush tool. Make sure the marker is showing. And draw your blades of grass. I would at least do what's there. You can always add some more. Make sure you go from top to bottom. Don't go down to bottom because then your grass is going to look like it's upside down. So always go from top to bottom. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the picture. I'm going to add a couple more. I feel like the grass is growing in pretty well. Okay, so now we have a tree and some nice grass. So now we're going to draw our canoe. So I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so in order to draw the canoe, you are going to select the tapered brush, which is going to be this one right here. See if I can pull up there we go. Tapered stroke. And make sure the paintbrush is selected, and then choose the color of your stroke. This one right here. So right now it's green because we did the grass. I'm going to do a brown for my boat. You can do a dark orange, you can make your boat red, whatever color you want. This is going to be the outside of the boat. We're going to fill it with color later, so that's why I'm choosing brown. So now, in order to get this to work properly, it's important that you don't create each one of these lines as a separate stroke, because it'll mess it up later when we're trying to fill our boat with color. So what that means is, when you're creating your boat, you have to do it in one motion without letting go of the mouse. So I would start right here on the left-hand side, hold down the mouse, and just make your way across the top of your canoe. Now once you get to this edge, do not let go of the mouse, but just continue your way down. Now once you get back to where you started, you should be fine. See how I kind of messed up there? I'm going to hit my selection tool, draw a line around that, and then I can actually just take my brush and reshape it. There we go. So if you kind of messed up a little bit, that should work. Now, in order to get the top half for the boat, we're going to choose the paintbrush tool again, and we're kind of going to re-circle this one what we did. So we're going to start right here, and we're going to kind of just go over the top again. Except for this time, when you get to the top, make your way back on top. And then let your mouse go when you're done. Now we're going to do one line right here and another line right here. So now we have a nice canoe, but we want to fill it with color now. So grab your selection tool and click on the bottom crescent that you created. Go to your fill color and pick whatever color you want to fill your boat with. I'm just going to choose yellow. And then this time choose the top crescent that we did and choose your fill color. And you have your canoe. So I'm going to zoom out so we can see what we have so far. So that's our picture right now. It's looking pretty good. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to draw some water, because we can't have a canoe without some water. We are going to start by selecting the 12-point oval brush. It's going to be the third one on the top row. So I'm going to select that one and then choose your brush stroke. I'm going to choose a light blue. You can do a dark blue. You could even do this blue right here, the stripes. I mean you have to be kind of realistic, but I'm going to choose the light blue. And then I'm going to zoom in. Okay, then make sure your paintbrush is selected, and then just using the guides, draw your water. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can kind of see a little bit better. So now I have some water. Now, we can change the diameter of our water. So if we think our water is too thick, you can decrease the stroke size. So in order to do that, double click on your oval over here, and where it says size, we're going to change it to 8, and we're also going to change the name of it. So we're going to change it to 8-point oval. Click OK. It's going to ask you if you want to apply it to the brush strokes. We do want to apply it because we do want to make what we just did smaller, so we're going to apply it. And it has made our brush strokes a little bit smaller. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a rope around the tree that connects it to the boat. That way our boat doesn't float away. We are going to use this rope brush right here. This is this is known as a pattern brush. Before we can draw a brush, we're going to change some stuff. So go ahead and double click on it to open up the pattern brush options. And we are going to change the scale of it to 20%. And then that will just make it a little bit smaller. And you can always, if you decide that you want your rope a little bit thicker, you can make it, you don't have to make it 20, you can make it 50%. This is just how thick your rope's going to be. So you kind of decide how thick of a rope you want. Once you're done, click OK. And then make sure your paintbrush is on. And make sure your rope is selected. And come in here and just draw your rope around the bottom of the tree. And you can let go. And then have it going to it. So if you feel like that rope is a little bit too big, just undo it. And this is where the scaling comes in. So you can go 20%, click OK, and when I draw it, I now have a little bit smaller rope. So it's kind of up to whatever size you want to draw your rope. You kind of decide how big or small you want your rope to be. Now to make the rope a little bit more realistic looking, we are going to move some of these blades of grass in front of the rope. So with your selection tool, click on the grass, and you can click on multiple grasses, like blades of grass, by holding down the shift key. So holding down the shift, I'm going to select some of the blades of grass that go in front. Whoops, kind of messed up, so I'm going to unmove that. Maybe we'll just do one at a time. So clicking on that, and then I'm going to go Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. I'm going to click on this one, Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. So now it kind of looks a little bit more realistic. I'm going to leave that one behind. And you can even, I don't know, this one might look better behind. No, we're going to leave it. We like it. So now we're done with that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create our own pattern brush. So like the pattern brushes with the leaves and the rope, we are going to create our own. But first, we have to unlock, we're going to base the pattern brush that we're going to make off of these two symbols right here. In order to get these two symbols, we first have to unlock the picture. So I'm going to go Object, Unlock All, and it basically unlocked all of our pictures. So the next thing we have to do before we can create a pattern brush, we have to make each one of these pictures a swatch. So if I click brushes right here, the one right to the left of it is known as a swatch. Go ahead and just click on your cloud, and all you have to do is drag it to your swatch. So now if you notice, I have it right here. Then I'm going to grab my sun, click it, and drag it, and now it's part of my swatch. So the next thing we have to do is we're going to create our brush. So in order to do that, we're going to go back to our brush, and down at the bottom, we're going to click New Brush. And we want to create a pattern brush. Click OK. And now we have different options. We didn't name our patterns, but if you notice, pattern swatch 1 is the sun, new pattern swatch 2 is the sun. Oops, I think pattern 1 was the cloud. Pattern 2 was the sun. Okay, this is going to be the side. We have the outer corner and the inner corner. And then we're not going to do the start title or the end title, so we're only going to fill the first 3. We want to fill the first one, the side, with actually the sun. And then we're going to click on the outer corner, and we're going to fill it with a sun. And we're going to click the inner corner, so click on the inner corner, hit pattern 2, and we have a sun. So you should have a cloud, sun, sun. And then we are going to change the name to clouds and sun. Once you do that, click OK. And if you notice, I now have a new brush over here that says sun, cloud, cloud, sun, which is perfect. Now, in order, we are going to make this a border around our document, so we are going to zoom out a little bit and grab your rectangle tool, which is 2 below the T. Click on it and draw a square based on that guide that you have on the outside of your paper. And then once you draw it, click on your brush, and it'll add the brush pattern that you just created. So all I did was I created a rectangle around my paper and clicked on the brush tool over here, and now I have a border basically to my picture. One of the last things we want to do is we're going to add some clouds above our tree. We're actually going to utilize the same brush pattern but just change some options. So I'm going to double click on this pattern to open up the brush options dialog box, and under scale we are going to change the scale to 250%, and we're going to click the spacing to 30%, and then click OK. And we do not, this time we're going to leave strokes, because we don't, if we hit apply to strokes, it's going to apply it to our border, and we don't want to do that. So if you hit apply to strokes, this is what's going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. So don't do that. Let me see, 250 and 30. Click OK. So go ahead and hit just leave strokes. Now, if you have a really tall tree, like maybe you made it really lots of leaves, and your leaves are pretty close to this line, the guideline, I would draw your stroke a little above that line so your clouds don't run into your tree. Make sure your paintbrush is selected, and since my leaves go pretty high, I'm going to draw mine just a little above that stroke line. And now I have 3 big clouds, and we have now finished our picture. It looks really good. The next thing that we want to do is we want to get rid of the guides, because we don't want to see them anymore. So in order to do that, go view, or not view, go object. Oh yeah, no, go view, my bad. Go view, guides, hide guides. And now we can't see the guides that we use, so it'll look like we were actually a really good artist and knew how to draw a tree and a canoe. So now you are now done with this assignment, so go ahead and save it. Go File, Save As, and just like all the other times, you're going to save it to wherever, click wherever you want to save it to. Save it as an Adobe Illustrator first, and we're going to name it your last name, your first initial, underscore, coloring page. And then click OK. Just accept all the defaults. And then we're going to save it once again. So File, Save As. This time we're going to save it as an Adobe PDF. Save it as your last name, your first initial, underscore, coloring page. Save it to wherever you're saving it to. Click OK. And accept the default. Now, do not forget to turn in your Adobe Illustrator file to be turned in to be graded, and then turn in your PDF file to the peer review so your peer reviewer can review it.